Hi there, my name is Sira Boats with Boats Memory Method, your dementia consulting agency. Thank you for joining us. And today we're talking about what can I do to improve my brain health. And I've invited with me today Dr. Heather Hardin, and she is a functional pharmacist and a naturopath, talking about our neuro pathways. And Heather, I would love for you to introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a little bit about what a functional medicine pharmacist and a naturopath does.
Yes, that's a mouthful. So
That is a mouthful. I want to say neuropath the whole time, but it's naturopath.
Congratulations. So I'm Heather Hardin, Dr. Heather. I've been a pharmacist for over 18, 19 years now, a clinical pharmacist, which means I work more with patients than I do like dispensing medications, which we often think of as a pharmacist. Did that for years, actually taught as a professor.
At the University of Florida.
University
we
UF,
have to highlight that.
So I got to teach pharmacy, which is a big passion of mine, but about 6 years ago got just this nudge to really take care of patients in a way that I felt was more my passion and my skill set. I'm a very naturopathic person. I'm a huge believer, always have been, in food is medicine, and just how do we take care of our health in all of those good ways. I also teach yoga and meditation, so I'm just that more naturopathic kind of person. My daughter's a chiropractor, we just have it in our family. So I decided to build Halo Health, which is my current practice, to be able to help people because I have the skill set for the medications, but I'm also an herbalist, a trained herbalist. So how can I integrate the natural ways of helping a condition, not just the medications? And that's what Halo Health is. A naturopath really works to look at a condition, worry and treat that condition, but also dig deeper and try to find the root causes of that condition, because that condition is just kind of a way the body can wave a red flag, something's wrong. Right. We, as a naturopath, we dive a little deeper to find what is that root cause besides just the symptom. And then also in that functional space, what that also means is we're trying to treat with all the modalities, including prescriptions, but also those other modalities of herbals, regulating vitamin deficiencies, things like that.
I love what you're saying because, as an occupational therapist, as somebody working with people living with dementia, as somebody that's working in the space of senior care and an aging population, we know how important medication management is. We know that our persons can get overwhelmed with a different array of medications that gets added to them, which may help the underlying symptoms. It may not be healing the root cause, and it's impacting the brain. And so having somebody that really understands the pharmacology behind the medications, the interactions that can tease that out, but then also put us on a path with natural interventions to help boost our health. To me, that's such a beautiful marriage. And I know you're on a journey too with aging parents. So tell us a little bit about your passion for caring for the aging brain.
Right. So my parents are older, they're in their 70s, and they happen to live 2 doors down. And that's a blessing. But they are aging, and we are starting to see some memory issues that are happening, and they're even acknowledging them, which is a plus. So being able to walk that walk with them and try to navigate. There's some great resources out there. I've personally kind of always draw on other people's thoughts and expertise in their books and things like that. But, there's a lot to think about. And I'm at that point where they're still aware. They still could help me manage through this and walk together. And I could ask their wishes for how they want this to kind of play out if things happen. So I'm at that early stage, but it really is, a personal experience of mine of having these parents go through, with their brain, and trying my best to not be that daughter that's always telling them they're doing everything wrong, but yet trying to help them, realize why they're kind of in this space of memory issues, like lifestyle wise, and how can we adjust those things.
Yes, so you are not only coming at this from a healthcare perspective, a functional medicine pharmacist, but you're also coming to this table from a perspective of a caregiver of aging parents. And sandwich generation, meaning you have a daughter and grandchildren that you're very involved with, and you are looking to walking this journey with your parents. That's something I have in common with you. I am a distant caregiver to my parents. I also have a family I'm taking care of, and in the middle, life meets, and we have this passion, and our passion gets getting stoked by taking care of our elderly parents and the aging brain. And so for both of us, and I know for many of our listeners, this is a reality, is the sandwich generation. And so what we're here today, what we want to do here today is we want to provide some very tactical, practical things for our audience on, yes, our brains are aging, but this is what we can do. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about the natural aging brain, what happens in an aging brain, and what's it that you see?
Thank you for asking. That's a great question. And I think that goes back to the root cause, right?
Yes.
As we think about this, I think a lot of the things that we can do to improve brain health fall under that umbrella of identifying what the root causes are and how can we address those. And I like to use the analogy of a rain barrel. So we're born as a baby and we have all this capacity. Our bodies are these incredible machines. God does a great job in giving us all these amazing tools to deal with stuff, because we're going to put things in our mouth that don't belong. And, so our bodies have this huge capacity to deal with things that really aren't healthy for us, because we have our immune system, we have our gut biome, we have all these things that are helping us stay healthy, even though we're maybe intaking things into our environment or ourselves that are not healthy.
Right.
And that is a lot of the root causes of kind of where we end up with this foggy brain, even because we have a rain barrel. That's how I like to describe it, of being able of capacity. We have a rain barrel, and things are coming into our rain barrel, whether it's through our mouth, of what we eat, whether it's something we put on our skin, whether it's just something we breathe in, or we're in the sun, we have radiation. We're getting exposed to lots of what we call toxins throughout our life, and our body is dealing with that, whether it's attacking it and making inflammation in our body. Inflammation can be a bad thing, but it's also how our body deals with foreign things.
Right.
But we can keep putting things into our rain barrel and our body deals with them. But over time, especially when we get to be this aged person, an older senior person, we have had a lifetime of putting things into our rain barrel.
Yeah.
Yes. And so those things come, whether it is, like I mentioned, things we put on our skin. We don't realize, like the cleaning products that we use, the moisturizers we put on our faces, the shampoos we put in our hair, all of those chemicals, the foods we eat that have hormones and preservatives and processed stuff, all of that our body is having to deal with. And our rain barrel starts to fill. And when our rain barrel, a lot of times it's when we get into the older years, that rain barrel overflows our capacity to deal with all of that buildup. And that's when the rain barrel overflows, I like to say that's when disease happens and your body has to manifest in some way that something is wrong. So in the prevention, we can talk about that. But, I think the root causes, a lot of times people, especially here in America, we just don't know what we don't know. And all the chemicals in like our cleaning products, as I mentioned, moisturizers, but in our foods, like the processed foods we're eating, the high sugar foods, if something says enriched, like cereal, we feel like, oh, great, it has vitamins in it. But the reason it's enriched in the first place means that all the nutrient has been pulled out of what we're using and we have to put it back in. So how can we address, that's where I always start, is like, how can we give your body more capacity to clear those toxins away? And that oftentimes will help the brain health as well as overall health.
Right. So you mentioned how over time, our brain can get foggy. I usually say there's things, there's inflammation, there's the chemicals, there's our stress levels that increases the cortisol, and our cells, I usually say they're soldiers, and our cells are fighting so hard to stay healthy. But when your cell starts dying faster than they regenerating, that's when dementia starts setting in. Because we all make cells, we make new cells every single day. Doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter what pathology you have, you're making new cells. The trick is, can I keep my cells healthy enough to support my functioning? And that's when we look at brain health, is how do we support the neurotransmitters in the brain and the interactions on micro level within the cells, so that we can have this sharper thinking and memory and judgment. So talk to us a little bit about some tricks and some things that we can use. And by the way, I've got my cup here. This is how I get my supplements in. I have to force myself. I add my super greens in here, and I add my clean protein and my vitamin C, and hopefully throughout the day I'm getting those nutrients, because truth be told, in our modern society, that plays a big role, is to add some natural things because we're just not getting it from our foods the way we used to. So very important.
And it's two levels, exactly. It's how can we limit the things that we're bringing in chemically to our bodies? Like, how can we limit what's coming into the rain barrel? But then you're kind of mentioning too, how can we improve the health of our bodies so they have more capacity? Now we're building our bodies, we're getting rid of the toxins, but also making our bodies stronger. And that's twofold, and it's easy-ish. But as you mentioned, the food, I start always with food. Food is medicine. And if we can clean up our food, and we always say eat the rainbow, and it really is true. If you can eat yellow, red, green, the whole rainbow, you're going to get a lot the
fruits and vegetables is what we're talking about.
Yeah,
the rainbow,
and you get a lot of
not the Skittles.
Exactly. But eating the right kind of nutrients, and those colors give you a lot of phytonutrients, give you a lot of flavonoids, give you a lot of antioxidants that are going to build your immune system. So eating the rainbow, eating good quality food is one thing, but also making sure that quality is not full of pesticides, not full of hormones, like also limiting the kind of artificial ingredients in our food. But like you said, a lot of times our food in America is just depleted of nutrients. Like even good vegetables, even good fruit, if we look at probably the seeds that we're using now to plant those things versus seeds from 100 years ago, we're definitely in a more depleted state with even the good foods that we eat. So supplementing a lot of times is what we go to. So first thing I always say, eat the rainbow, and then decrease stress, right? So we know from all these studies of blue zones, of like people who live a really long time and studying them, what are they doing? They have lower stress levels. To what they found that lowers the stress levels a lot of times is more natural things, like getting out in nature. We have this world where we're in our rooms all the time. We're in our cars, we're working, we're at home. We don't always put ourselves out in nature, and we are nature. And there's such a healing quality to being in and around nature. So we find that these blue zone individuals spend a lot of time outdoors.
And they grow their own food.
Yes.
And
they're
they
active.
move. Yes.
They're active outside.
They're
not just
have
outside.
Cars a lot of times.
Right.
It's bicycles and walking.
And they find gratification in growing food.
Yes.
Or raising those horses,
and
or whatever they're doing.
Community.
Right.
They have a village.
And it's maybe family.
Right.
A lot of them have families,
and neighbors,
communities around them, and they are always with people. But some of them don't have, you don't have to have family. We don't all have great families.
Right.
So also community can look like friendship, right? Yes. Or reaching out. And a lot of times our elderly, I feel like, will be trapped and they're inside all the time.
Isolated.
Yeah, very isolated. It's hard to reach out. And it's just a miracle and blessing sometimes we reach out to them.
And that's just a reminder for us too, as we're listening to this, is, how can we include the lonely neighbor, the lonely person that's aging, that's a lost family? Because that's one thing in 2023 that a lot of reports were released here in America through the Surgeon General, through the World Health Organization, that isolation is becoming our largest pandemic and our largest threat to health. And so how can we just reach out and encircle those individuals, include them so that they're not isolated? So, and a lot, like you said, we can look at those models, the Mediterranean, blue zone models, where people are still living that simple life close to the ground, close to each other, and away of some of these, I call it the drive-through mentality. We are so used to just drive through the pharmacy and get the next prescription for wellness, drive through a food place to quickly get our food, and our life becomes so fast-paced, seeking the next fast thing, that we're no longer grounded in those good principles.
Right. We're not grounded to who we really are and to connection with who we are. And in tandem with that is that emotional piece. So there is an emotional piece of these people are generally satisfied or happy. So it doesn't have to look like, they go outside and walk, maybe it's they like to paint. Like, we know how powerful emotion is, especially for the person who's alone, right? We can always tie, and there's tons of research that shows your emotions are powerful in your health. And so these people usually are finding gratification and happiness. And so all of that kind of synergizes together and connects. But then when it comes to the nutrients, a lot of times there's nutrients also that we can bring on, nutraceuticals and supplements and stuff that can help us as well with the aging brain and with the aging immune system and free radicals that you talk about, the antioxidants. So there are some supplementation we can also add to just that natural stuff.
Right. And we have here with us a few of those. And I know you, do you want to touch quickly on lion mane and mushrooms?
Lion's mane is... This is on the cutting edge of research. So this is something that they're still diving into currently. A lot of our prescription medications for memory and dementia and Alzheimer, and supplements as well that we can give to nourish the brain, all of them seem to kind of nourish the brain into not getting worse. We kind of slow this progression of memory issues. There's very little, we haven't found that panacea of like miracle pill that's going to bring memory back. We just haven't found that. So just starting there. But lion's mane is something that's showing a lot of promise. It is a mushroom, as you mentioned. It tastes like crab. You can buy it and actually cook with it, but just know it has a little bit of a crab taste to it. It's interesting. It looks like a lion's mane.
It's really good.
Yeah,
it's expensive to buy fresh, but if you just pan sear it with a little bit of good oils,
and it looks like a lion's mane. It has all these little fingers. That's why they call it lion's mane. But what they found chemically and just pathophysiologically in our bodies, lion's mane is actually what we call neurogenerative, and we have never really found a compound that is as neurogenerative as this. And what that means basically is it is growing the connections of nerve cells, which we've never been able to do that. We always talk about when somebody gets paralyzed, nerves don't grow back. We all know that kind of scenario. Well, these are actually growing better connections of the nerves and also growing what's called the myelin sheath on the outside of the nerves, which again is what disappears with like MS and motor issues. Protective sheath. And so it's where the communication happens in the nerves. And so it's building that around. So it's just doing lots of really generative growth, nurturing things to the cells of the brain. So I always recommend when someone has memory issues or foggy brain or just wants more focus or clarity, definitely start with lion's mane is one of the options.
Yeah, and we're just going to touch on a few things here.
Just a few. There's so many.
And so much. So there's probiotics, and I know there's a lot of talk about they're not all created equally, of course. I just brought the one that I use, and a lot of times, let's just be honest, it comes back to affordability and what can you afford. I know that there are probiotic products that can be refrigerated that's actually better for you because you're maintaining the organisms better, and they can be activated easier in your gut system, but you are going to get some benefit from a regular over-the-counter probiotic, and try to buy the one the best quality that you can afford. But there's a lot of interesting research on gut health and how the gut, and I even not just even gut health, for me it's your mucus lining health. So it's your gut as well as your bladder. And there's a connection between your bladder health, your gut health, and your brain health.
Yep. And they're so connected. Actually, I always like to share this information because I didn't know it till I studied gut health, which is one of my specialties. Your gut and your brain were actually the same cells at one point of you growing from an embryo. They were the same, and then they differentiated.
I knew that a long time ago when I studied, but I forgot.
It differentiated into your gut, and then it differentiated. Different part of those cells became your brain. So your central nervous system, your brain and spinal cord are directly linked in so many ways to your gut. And the easiest way to recognize that is when you eat or drink something really cold, what happens? Your head hurts.
Brain freeze.
So that's just the easiest way to kind of see how connected they are. But you're exactly right. And one of those things over time that fills your rain barrel is all these chemicals and things we eat, and all of that time of being in your gut and beating up your gut. Your gut takes a hit, especially later in life. And you're exactly right. Your gut, it holds, maybe this is interesting fact as well, your gut holds 70% of your immune system. So when your gut is out of sorts and your GI system isn't functioning well, your immune system isn't functioning well. And that can then contribute to all kinds of things down the line that works on brain health. So you're exactly right. There are probiotics that bring a little more health to your system. The good probiotics are actually the ones making good chemicals in our body that build our immune system. And to what you said, there's certain species of probiotics, and in certain disease states, like there's one, Akkermansia is really beneficial for diabetics because it does lots of good things for sugars as well. So there's some guidance in which probiotics would be better for each individual.
And that's where you come in.
Yeah, so I can help with that. Or like you said, minimally just asking your local pharmacist, what is a good brand before you buy, because they're going to know a little bit. But if you want to know more specifics, and working with somebody like me that's more naturopathic would be able to direct you to specific species that would be good.
That's awesome. And then I'm going to just highlight one more thing that to me is low-hanging fruit, and that's fish oils. Again, you want to go look for something that is, as clean as possible. I know that there's a lot of talk about the fish we buy at the supermarket that may have some plastics in it, and they may have been exposed to chemicals, mercury. And so how do we supplement? Because we know there's studies out there that if we overdose on good fish oil, that really supports our brain health and our neurosystem. And so that's just something that I always highlight for the audience is, invest in, a good fish oil daily.
Absolutely. And that falls in line kind of with the antioxidants in a way. So the other antioxidants that are great for brain health and aging is zinc, vitamin C, of course, magnesium. Those kind of are the ones that we want to really make sure our older population adds those because antioxidants kind of protect your cells from damage from all these things. So it's like a protective thing, and it helps with cancer and lots of good things to boost your
coming back to the anti-inflammatory and improved immune system, which starts with your gut.
70% of it. Yeah. One final thing, just another new thing like lion's mane. If the audience wants to look up NR, it's N as in Nancy, R as in Robert, or NMN, which is the opposite of M&M, but it's NMN. And those two, what we're finding happens with aging is aging has a lot to do with, we're looking at telomeres, which is your DNA, but we're also looking at your mitochondria. Your mitochondria are in every single cell. They're an organelle that makes energy for your other body processes. So feeding and keeping your mitochondria healthy becomes really huge in the aging process. There's lots of good animal data we have that they're actually reversing aging, and it's all through the mitochondria nurturing. And that is where those two, the NR, you usually find them one or the other, NR or NMN, are helping nourish the mitochondria, which helps in the aging process.
That's so interesting. Great new research that's coming out. Such a good thing for us to be aware. First off, what do we put into our bodies, and how can we support our bodies to do its job better? Heather, thank you for this conversation today. You have such great insights. Be sure to look at Halo Health. Follow Dr. Heather Hardin and reach out to her if you need any support with functional medicine. And my name is Sira Boats, and please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, go to our website, boatsmemorymethod.com. That's BOTES, where you can find free webinars, free caregiver support groups, and a free monthly newsletter with lots of good stuff just for you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.